He thought the alien girl just wanted to warm up in his tent, but not like that. The rain pelted down mercilessly on Aiden Butler's expedition tent, each droplet a tiny percussion instrument in nature's symphony of discomfort. He sat by his campfire, protected somewhat by the makeshift shelter he'd constructed from local branches and leaves, watching the flames dance while sipping hot coffee from his thermos. The alien forest around him was alive with unfamiliar sounds, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that both thrilled and unnerved him. As an interstellar explorer and xenobiologist for the Terran Scientific Corps, Aiden was used to being alone in strange environments. This particular expedition to the newly discovered planet, designated HD 742C, had already yielded fascinating results. The local flora exhibited remarkable properties, and the atmospheric conditions were surprisingly Earth-like, making it a potential candidate for future colonization. His brown hair, neatly trimmed and styled despite his wilderness situation, was slightly damp from the persistent drizzle. His beard, which he maintained meticulously even in the field, caught droplets of water that occasionally fell from the shelter above. The beige khaki expedition gear he wore was designed for exactly these conditions, keeping him relatively comfortable despite the weather. A sudden movement in the tree line caught his attention. Years of field experience had taught him to trust his instincts, and right now they were screaming that something was watching him. His hand instinctively moved toward the pulse pistol at his hip, but he forced himself to remain calm and appear relaxed. The rustling grew closer, and Aiden tensed, ready for anything, or so he thought. What emerged from the darkness was the last thing he expected: a humanoid female figure with pale green skin that seemed to glow softly in the firelight. Her light-colored hair cascaded in gentle waves down her back, and her outfit, a form-fitting black leather ensemble that left little to the imagination, was completely inappropriate for the weather conditions. "Holy shit," Aiden muttered under his breath, his training momentarily forgotten as he stared at the alien woman. She was breathtakingly beautiful in an exotic, otherworldly way that made his heart race. The alien woman approached the fire with graceful movements, her eyes a striking amber color, fixed on Aiden. "Your fire," she said in perfect English, her voice carrying a melodious quality that sent shivers down his spine. "It's warm." Aiden blinked in surprise. "You speak English?" A slight smile played across her lips. "We've been studying your kind for some time. May I?" She gestured toward the fire. "Of course," Aiden replied, shifting to make room under the shelter. As she sat down, he noticed that her skin wasn't just pale green. It had a subtle pattern of lighter markings that reminded him of marble. "I'm Aiden Butler, xenobiologist with the Terran Scientific Corps." "I am Lyxa," she said simply, extending her hands toward the flames. Water droplets rolled off her leather outfit, which hugged her curves in a way that made Aiden force himself to look elsewhere. "You're not dressed for this weather," he observed, trying to keep his tone professional. Lyxa's amber eyes met his, and there was something in her gaze that made his pulse quicken. "Perhaps not. But I find that sometimes discomfort can lead to interesting situations." She paused, then added, "Your tent looks much warmer than my current accommodations." Aiden swallowed hard. Was she suggesting what he thought she was suggesting? "Are you asking to stay the night? Would that be inappropriate?" Lyxa asked, her voice carrying a hint of innocence that seemed at odds with her appearance and demeanor. No, Aiden said quickly, perhaps too quickly. "I mean, it would be cruel to leave you out in this weather. I have spare blankets and—" "Thank you," she interrupted, standing in one fluid motion. "Shall we?" As Aiden led her to his tent, he couldn't shake the feeling that this situation was either going to be the most interesting scientific encounter of his career or the biggest mistake he'd ever made. Possibly both. Inside the tent, the air felt thick with unspoken tension. Aiden busied himself arranging the sleeping bags and thermal blankets, hyper-aware of Lyxa's presence behind him. The soft glow emanating from her pale green skin provided just enough illumination to work by, casting ethereal shadows on the tent's walls. "Your species is fascinating," Lyxa said, settling gracefully onto one of the sleeping bags. "So concerned with propriety, yet capable of such passionate intensity when the moment calls for it." Aiden turned to face her, trying to maintain his professional demeanor despite the intimate setting. "You seem to know a lot about humans. Are you some kind of anthropologist?" Her amber eyes sparkled with amusement. "Something like that. I'm an evaluator for the Galactic Council. We study emerging species to determine their readiness for integration into the wider galactic community. Wait, Aiden said, his scientific mind racing with implications. You're saying there's an organized galactic civilization out there? And we're being evaluated? Lyxa leaned forward, her movement causing the leather of her outfit to creak softly. Every species must be evaluated before contact is initiated. We look for certain qualities. What kind of qualities? Aiden asked, finding it increasingly difficult to concentrate as Lyxa's proximity affected his senses. Her scent was unlike anything he'd encountered before, sweet and exotic, with an underlying note that reminded him of rain-soaked earth. Compassion, adaptability, emotional intelligence. She reached out and traced a finger along his jawline, sending electricity through his nervous system. The capacity for genuine connection? Aiden caught her hand, his pulse racing. And this is part of your evaluation? Seducing random scientists in the wilderness? Nothing random about it, Aiden Butler, Lyxa purred, her free hand coming to rest on his chest. You were chosen specifically. Your psychological profile suggested you'd be an ideal candidate for this phase of the evaluation. Phase? He managed to ask, his voice rougher than intended. The most important phase, she whispered, moving closer. Testing humanity's capacity for intimate emotional bonds with other species. Your reaction to me, your willingness to help despite potential danger, your ability to see past physical differences, these are crucial indicators. Aiden's mind spun with the implications. So this is all just research to you? Lyxa's expression softened, something vulnerable flickering in her amber eyes. It was supposed to be, but you're different. The way you look at me, not as a specimen or an object of desire, but as a person, it's affecting my judgment. The rain continued its steady drumming on the tent, creating a cocoon of intimacy around them. Aiden found himself drawn into those alien eyes, seeing something there that transcended species barriers. A genuine connection that both thrilled and terrified him. Your heart rate has increased, Lyxa observed, her hand still on his chest. Are you afraid? No, Aiden answered honestly. Overwhelmed, maybe? It's not every day you find out you're part of an interstellar evaluation process. She laughed softly, the sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Most subjects don't learn about it until after, but I find myself wanting to be honest with you. Why me? Aiden asked, his hand unconsciously moving to brush a strand of her luminescent hair from her face. Because you see beauty in the unknown instead of fear. Because you study life forms not to exploit them, but to understand them. Because ... She paused, seeming to struggle with something internal. Because you make me question everything I've been taught about emotional distance during evaluations. The atmosphere in the tent shifted, charged with possibility. Aiden could feel himself standing on the edge of something momentous, a decision that would affect not just him, but potentially the future of human-alien relations. And what happens now? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Lyxa's response was to close the distance between them, her lips finding his in a kiss that sent waves of sensation through his entire body. It was unlike anything he'd experienced, alien yet familiar, foreign yet perfectly natural. Her skin emitted a soft warmth that seemed to pulse in rhythm with their heartbeats. What followed was a night of discovery and connection that transcended physical boundaries. Their encounter was as much about emotional resonance as it was about physical attraction. Each touch and caress carrying the weight of two species, reaching across the vast gulf of space to find common ground in the language of intimacy. Hours later, as they lay entwined in the darkness, the rain still pattering steadily on the tent, Aiden traced the marble-like patterns on Lyxa's arm, watching them glow softly at his touch. The intimacy they'd shared had been profound, more than just a physical connection. It felt like their very souls had intertwined. I should tell you something, Lyxa murmured, her head resting on his chest. My species, the Etheri, we don't engage in casual intimacy. When we choose a mate, it's significant. Aiden's hand paused in its exploration. Significant how? Our biology is unique. We form permanent psychic bonds with our chosen partners. It's why we're such effective evaluators. We can literally feel the emotional capacity of other species. She propped herself up on an elbow, her amber eyes serious. What we shared tonight, it wasn't just physical pleasure. I've initiated a bond. A bond? Aiden felt a mix of awe and trepidation. You mean we're connected? Yes. I can sense your emotions now, your thoughts. And it's why this is forbidden during evaluations. We're supposed to maintain objectivity. She looked away, her skin pulsing with what Aiden was beginning to recognize as anxiety. I've compromised my mission. The council will not be pleased. Aiden sat up, drawing her closer. Hey, look at me. I'm not sorry it happened. Whatever consequences come, we'll face them together. Her laugh was tinged with both joy and worry. That's exactly the kind of response that made me break protocol. Humans are so resilient, so willing to face the unknown with courage. Speaking of unknown, Aiden said, trying to lighten the mood, any other biological surprises I should know about? I mean, I'm a xenobiologist, but I feel distinctly unprepared for all this. Lyxa's skin flickered with what he now recognized as amusement. Well, there is one thing. She placed his hand on her abdomen. Ethereal reproduction is highly efficient, especially with compatible species. Aiden's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Are you saying the bond we formed makes it possible? My people can only conceive with species we form genuine, emotional connections with. It's why we're so careful about intimacy. She watched his reaction carefully. Are you angry? Aiden let out a breathless laugh. Angry? I don't even know what I am. Shocked? Terrified? Amazed? He ran a hand through his hair. I came here to study alien plant life, and now I might be a father to an interspecies child. It's a lot to process. The council will see it as proof that I've failed in my duty, Lyxa said softly. They'll recall me, assign another evaluator, one who won't let emotions cloud their judgment. And what about us? About ... He gestured to her abdomen. That's why I'm telling you now. We have choices to make and not much time. She sat up fully, her expression serious. The council monitors all evaluators. When they detect the bond, and they will, they'll send retrieval teams, standard protocol for compromised evaluations. Aiden felt a surge of protectiveness. They can't just take you away, not now. Actually, Lyxa said, a mischievous glint in her eye, they can try, but there's something else they don't know. Something that might change everything. What's that? The preliminary results of my evaluation. Humanity isn't just ready for contact. You're essential to the galaxy's future. Your species has something we've lost over millennia of technological advancement. The ability to love freely without calculation or reservation. She touched his face gently. You've reminded me what that feels like. The pre-dawn light barely penetrated the dense alien forest canopy when Aiden's emergency scanner began pulsing with warning signals. Lyxa's skin flickered with alarm patterns he was quickly learning to read, her amber eyes wide with urgency. They're here, she whispered, already moving with fluid grace to gather their essential supplies. The council works faster than I anticipated. Aiden quickly pulled on his expedition boots, his scientific mind cataloging the situation even as adrenaline coursed through his system. How much time do we have? Minutes. Their retrieval ships are designed for stealth, but they can't mask their quantum signatures completely. Lyxa's leather outfit seemed to shimmer and adapt, becoming more suitable for rapid movement. There's something you should know about council retrievers. They're engineered for their job. No emotions, no hesitation. Sounds charming, Aiden muttered, securing his research data and specimen collection to his back. Any chance we can talk our way out of this? A sound like distant thunder rolled across the sky, but Aiden knew better. Those were ships entering the atmosphere. Lyxa's skin pulsed with patterns he hadn't seen before, presumably reflecting her rising stress levels. They're not interested in talking, she said, checking a device on her wrist that looked far more advanced than anything Aiden had ever seen. The council believes emotional contamination is worse than physical violence. They'll cleanse me of our bond, even if it... She trailed off, her hand unconsciously moving to her abdomen. The implications hit Aiden like a physical blow. They'd terminate the pregnancy. Without hesitation, hybrid children are strictly forbidden without council approval. Lyraxa's expression hardened. But they'll have to catch us first, and they don't know what they're dealing with. What do you mean? A sly smile crossed her face. They sent retrievers designed to capture a standard evaluator, but I'm not standard anymore. She took his hand, and Aiden felt a surge of energy flow between them. Our bond gives me access to human adaptability, human unpredictability. And there's something else they don't know about. The thunder grew closer, and Aiden could now see flashes of Lyxa through the trees. What's that? I didn't just choose you for your emotional capacity, Aiden. I chose you because you're the best xenobiologist in the Terran Corps. Your research on local flora and fauna might be our only chance. Understanding dawned. The bioluminescent fungi I've been studying? The ones that interfere with advanced scanning equipment? Exactly, but we need to move now. They burst from the tent just as the first retriever ship became visible through the canopy. A sleek, dark vessel that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Aiden led them toward a dense patch of forest where he documented extensive growth of the fungi in question. The chase that followed was unlike anything in Aiden's experience. The retrievers, when they finally caught glimpses of them, were humanoid, but clearly artificial. Chrome-skinned beings moving with mechanical precision through the underbrush. Their eyes glowed an eerie red, scanning constantly for their quarry. Lyxa proved to be an incredible partner in their escape. Her knowledge of council technology combined perfectly with Aiden's understanding of the local environment. They used the bioluminescent fungi to create false trails, exploiting the way the organisms interfered with the retrievers' scanning systems. During a brief respite in a hollow tree trunk, Lyxa pressed close to Aiden, their breathing synchronized. "The bond is growing stronger," she whispered, her skin glowing with patterns that matched his elevated heartbeat. I can anticipate your thoughts almost before you have them." "Is that why it feels like we've been doing this together for years instead of hours?" Aiden asked, finding himself distracted by her proximity despite their dire situation. "Partly," she smiled, tracing a finger along his jaw in a way that made his pulse race for entirely different reasons. "But it's also because you're exactly what I knew you'd be. Adaptable, quick thinking, unafraid." A retriever's heavy footsteps passed nearby, and they held their breath. The moment of danger passed, but the intimacy remained, charged with both their growing connection and the thrill of their shared adventure. "We need to get to my research station," Aiden said, his mind racing with possibilities. "I have equipment there that could help us document humanity's unique qualities. If we can prove to the Council that emotional connections make us stronger, not weaker." "They might listen," Lyxa finished his thought, "especially if we can demonstrate that our bond has enhanced my abilities rather than compromised them." Her skin flickered with excitement. "The station is defensible." "Better than that," Aiden grinned. "It's got a full complement of communication equipment. We could broadcast our findings to every council member simultaneously. Make it impossible for them to sweep this under the rug." "Aiden Butler," Lyxa breathed, her amber eyes glowing with admiration. "You continue to surprise me. That's exactly the kind of bold, creative thinking that made me fall for you in the first place." Their moment of connection was interrupted by a mechanical voice echoing through the forest. "Evaluator Lyxa, you are ordered to submit for cleansing. Resistance will only increase the thoroughness of the procedure." Aiden felt Lyxa shudder against him, and protective fury rose in his chest. "That's not happening," he growled, pulling her closer. "No," she agreed, her voice steel beneath its musical quality. "It's not, but we need to move." "The research station?" 3 kilometers northeast. There's a ravine we can use for cover most of the way." He checked his compass. "Ready!" Instead of answering, Lyxa pulled him into a fierce kiss that left him breathless. When she pulled back, her skin was pulsing with determination and something else, something that made his heart race. "Now I'm ready. Lead the way, my brilliant human." They emerged from their hiding place into the alien dawn, moving as one through the forest that had brought them together. Behind them, the retrievers continued their methodical pursuit, unaware that they were chasing something unprecedented in galactic history. A love that defied not just species barriers, but the very foundations of their ordered universe. The journey through the dense alien forest became increasingly challenging as Lyxa's condition began to manifest in unexpected ways. Her pale green skin now pulsed with new patterns, swirling, intricate designs that Aiden had never seen before. They paused behind a massive tree trunk, its bark covered in the bioluminescent fungi that had been helping them evade the retrievers. "Something's happening," Lyxa whispered, her hand pressed against her abdomen. Her leather outfit had begun adapting itself, expanding slightly to accommodate subtle changes in her form. "The pregnancy, it's progressing far faster than I anticipated." Aiden's scientific mind raced with implications, even as his heart swelled with protective concern. "How is that possible? It's only been hours since you thought I just wanted to warm up in your tent?" Lyxa's amber eyes sparkled with mischief despite their dire situation. "Human theory, hybrid genetics are unprecedented. Our bond seems to be accelerating the process exponentially." A mechanical whirring sound passed overhead, another retriever drone. They pressed closer together in the shadows. Aiden's arms instinctively wrapping around Lyxa. The intimacy of their position sent shivers through both of them, their bond amplifying every sensation. "Your emotional response to protecting us is affecting the development," Lyxa explained, her voice hushed but filled with wonder. "Human paternal instincts are remarkably powerful. My people lost that kind of raw, emotional intensity centuries ago." "Is that why you chose me?" Aiden asked, his fingers unconsciously tracing the new patterns on her skin. "Because humans still feel things so strongly?" "Partly," she admitted, leaning into his touch. "But I never expected—" She gasped suddenly, her skin flaring with brilliant patterns. "What's wrong?" "Not wrong," she breathed, taking his hand and placing it on her slightly rounded abdomen. "Feel." Under his palm, Aiden felt a distinct flutter of movement. His eyes widened in astonishment. "That's impossible, even with accelerated development." "Our child already has a consciousness," Lyxa explained, her voice filled with awe. "It's connecting with both of us through the bond. The combination of human emotional capacity and etheric psychic abilities, it's creating something entirely new." The moment was interrupted by another mechanical voice, closer this time. "Anomalous biological signatures detected. Converge on coordinates." "They're tracking the baby's energy signature," Lyxa realized, her skin pulsing with anxiety. "We need to move, now." They resumed their journey toward the research station, but the terrain grew more challenging. Lyxa's rapidly advancing pregnancy affected her balance, forcing them to move more slowly than they'd like. Aiden found himself constantly aware of her condition, every step calculated to ensure her safety. During a brief rest in a cave formation, Lyxa pulled him close, her skin glowing with an intensity that illuminated their shelter. "I need to tell you something," she whispered, her fingers tracing the line of his beard. "The Council's fears about human etheri bonds, they weren't entirely unfounded." "What do you mean?" "When our species bond, we don't just share emotions, we evolve. Both partners begin developing new abilities." She demonstrated by placing her hand on his chest, and suddenly Aiden could see his own emotional state manifested as colors swirling around him. Brilliant reds of passion, deep blues of concern, golden threads of love. "Holy shit," he breathed, watching the colors dance. "I can see what I see," she finished. "And that's just the beginning. The child we're creating, it will be more than either of our species, a bridge between worlds." Her expression grew serious. "That's what the Council truly fears. Not contamination, but evolution they can't control." Aiden processed this information while keeping watch at the cave entrance. "So when you came to my tent that night, I was following my mission parameters," she admitted, her skin flushing with patterns that he now recognized as embarrassment. "But the moment we connected, everything changed. I felt something I'd never experienced before. Pure, unfiltered human passion. It was intoxicating." Their eyes met in the dim light, and the bond between them surged with shared memory of that first night. Despite their dangerous situation, desire flickered between them like lightning. "We should rest while we can," Aiden suggested, his voice rough. "The station's still 2 kilometers away." Lyxa's response was to pull him down beside her, her body fitting perfectly against his. "Our child is strengthening the bond," she murmured, her fingers intertwining with his. "Every moment we're together, we become more attuned." The intimacy of their position, combined with the constant danger and the miracle growing between them, created an atmosphere charged with emotion and desire. Their connection deepened with every shared breath, every tender touch, every silent communication through their strengthening bond. A sudden movement in Lyxa's abdomen drew their attention. She guided Aiden's hand to the spot, and through their bond, he felt not just physical movement, but a distinct emotional presence. Curiosity, contentment, love. "It knows us," he whispered in amazement. "Already knows us and loves us," Lyxa completed his thought. Human capacity for love combined with Ethereal's psychic abilities. Our child will be able to project emotions across light years, Aiden. Imagine what that could mean for the galaxy. The implication staggered him. A bridge between species, a way to share feelings across any distance. The end of emotional isolation for advanced species, Lyxa nodded. The return of what we lost in our pursuit of perfect logic and order. She traced his jaw with gentle fingers. All because you were kind enough to share your tent with a mysterious alien on a rainy night. Their moment of reflection was shattered by the sound of multiple retriever units converging on their location. Lyxa's skin pulsed with alarm patterns. But there was something else there too. Determination, strength, and a fierce protectiveness that matched Aiden's own. "Ready to run?" he asked, helping her to her feet. "Ready to fight," she corrected him, her amber eyes glowing with intensity. "For our future, for our child, for everything we could mean to the galaxy." Aiden felt their bond surge with shared purpose and power. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The xenobiologist who opened his tent to a mysterious visitor, and the alien evaluator who discovered that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from following your heart instead of your mission parameters. The forest erupted with an otherworldly Avril as their unborn child's psychic presence expanded like a supernova of pure emotion. Aiden watched in awe as Lyxa's skin responded with synchronized patterns, her entire body becoming a living light show that put the bioluminescent fungi to shame. "Something's happening," she gasped, gripping his hand. "The baby, it's broadcasting." Before Aiden could respond, the air shimmered with dozens of new presences. Unlike the cold, mechanical signatures of the retrievers, these pulses felt alive, organic, yearning. Through his evolving bond with Lyxa, he could sense them, other Aetheri, drawn to the unprecedented emotional beacon of their hybrid child. "They're like me," Lyxa whispered, her amber eyes wide with wonder. "Evaluators who've felt the emptiness in our species, who've longed for what humans still possess." The first to materialize from the ethereal light was a tall, elegant, Aetheri male with deep blue skin, wearing the formal robes of a council observer. His expression held none of the cold detachment Aiden had expected. Instead, his eyes shone with barely contained hope. "Evaluator Lyxa," he said, his voice carrying harmonics that made the air vibrate. "I am Observer Traxel. We've been monitoring your situation with great personal interest." More Aetheri appeared through the trees, their skin tones ranging across a spectrum of colors, each pulsing with suppressed emotional patterns. Many wore the distinctive uniforms of various council positions, but their rigid postures were betrayed by the naked longing in their eyes. "Personal interest?" Lyxa challenged, one hand protectively over her abdomen. "Or council business?" Traxel's skin rippled with patterns that Aiden recognized as amusement. "If it were council business, would I have disabled the retrievers in this sector?" As if on cue, the mechanical sounds of pursuit that had haunted them fell silent. Aiden felt Lyxa relax slightly against him, though her wariness remained evident in her skin patterns. "You're part of an underground movement," she realized. "How many of you are there?" "More than the council suspects," a female Aetheri stepped forward, her crimson skin glowing softly. "We've been watching humanity since first contact, seeing in them what our species has lost, the capacity for raw emotion, for unconditional love, for passion without calculation. What you and Aiden have created," Traxel gestured to Lyxa's abdomen, "it's proof that we can reclaim what we've lost. That evolution doesn't have to mean the death of feeling." The baby chose that moment to pulse with another wave of emotional energy, and Aiden watched in fascination as every Aetheri present responded involuntarily, their skin patterns synchronizing in a spectacular display of shared feeling. "By the stars," the crimson-skinned female breathed. "The child. It's teaching us how to feel again." Lyxa turned to Aiden, her eyes shining with tears. something he'd thought physically impossible for her species. Do you understand what this means? Our night together, what started as a simple evaluation, has turned into a revolution, he finished, drawing her closer. The intimacy of their embrace sent ripples of emotional energy through the assembled Etheri, who watched with expressions of newfound wonder. The Council fears this above all else, Traxel explained. Not just human unpredictability, but the possibility that contact with humanity might reawaken what they've spent millennia suppressing. They believe emotion makes us weak, vulnerable. But they're wrong, Aiden stated firmly. Look at what Lyxa and I have accomplished together. Our bond doesn't weaken us. It makes us stronger, more adaptable, more alive. The assembled Etheri murmured in agreement, their skin patterns creating an aurora borealis effect throughout the forest clearing. Through their bond, Aiden felt Lyxa's pride and love wash over him, matched by their child's growing awareness and joy. We need to reach the research station, Lyxa announced. With your help, we can broadcast proof of what's happening here to every council member simultaneously. Show them what they've been denying themselves and their people. Not just proof, Aiden added, his scientific mind racing with possibilities. But a choice. The Council fears human emotional influence because they think it will be forced upon them. But what if we showed them it could be voluntary? A gift offered, not a contamination imposed. Traxel's skin pulsed with approval. A diplomatic solution that preserves both council authority and individual freedom of choice. Brilliant. That's my human, Lyxa beamed, her hand finding Aiden's. Always finding the unexpected path? The gathering of rebel Etheri organized themselves with impressive efficiency, creating a protective formation around Aiden and Lyxa. As they moved through the forest toward the research station, Aiden found himself amazed by how quickly events had evolved from that first rainy night when a mysterious alien asked to share his tent. Having second thoughts? Lyxa teased, sensing his contemplation through their bond. About letting you warm up in my tent? He grinned, pulling her closer as they walked. Never, though I admit, I didn't expect it to lead to fatherhood and galactic revolution. Their shared laughter carried through the forest, a sound of pure joy that made their Etheri escorts' skin patterns flutter with vicarious pleasure. Their child responded too, sending out waves of contentment that seemed to make the very air glow with possibility. The Council won't go down without a fight, Traxel warned as they approached the research station. They'll see this as the beginning of the end for their perfect, emotionless order. Good, Lyxa declared, her amber eyes fierce, because that's exactly what it is. The end of isolation, the end of suppression, the end of denying what makes life worth living. She looked at Aiden with such intensity that his breath caught. The beginning of something beautiful. The research station, a sleek combination of Terran and alien architecture, rose from the forest clearing like a metallic flower. Aiden led the group through the security protocols, his hands flying over familiar controls, while Lyxa coordinated with the rebel Etheri to establish a defensive perimeter. The broadcasting equipment is in the main lab, Aiden explained, his scientific expertise now focused on communication rather than xenobiology. We can use the quantum amplifiers to boost the signal across Council space. Traxel's skin pulsed with warning patterns. The Council will detect the power surge. They'll know exactly where we are. Good, Lyxa declared, her leather outfit now fully adapted to her advancing pregnancy, making her look like a warrior goddess. Let them come. It's time they faced what they've been running from. As if in response to her challenge, the facility's warning systems blazed to life. Through the reinforced windows, they could see multiple council ships descending from the clouds, their sleek forms bristling with weaponry. Well, Aiden quipped, pulling Lyxa close, they certainly didn't waste time. Guess they didn't appreciate our little emotional revolution. The rebel Etheri took up defensive positions, their skin patterns synchronizing in a display of unity that would have been impossible hours earlier. The baby's influence had accelerated their emotional awakening, turning theoretical dissidents into passionate warriors. The broadcast will take 4 minutes to reach all council frequencies, Aiden announced, initiating the sequence. We need to hold them off until the first blast rocked the station, cutting him off. Through their bond, he felt Lyxa's fierce determination mixed with their child's surprisingly strategic thoughts. The baby was actively coordinating their emotional energies, turning their connection into a weapon. "They're deploying enhanced retriever," Traxel warned, his blue skin flickering with tactical patterns. "These units are designed to suppress emotional resonance. They'll try to disrupt our bonds." The battle that followed was unlike anything in human or ethereal history. The Council forces, led by emotionless chrome retrievers, attacked with cold precision. But they faced something unprecedented. Humans and Etheri fighting together, their emotional bonds amplifying their natural abilities. Aiden found himself moving with impossible grace, his connection to Lyxa giving him access to Etheri combat techniques. Meanwhile, Lyxa wielded human passion like a weapon, her emotional outbursts creating shockwaves that scattered the retrievers. "The broadcast is at 40%, Aiden called out, ducking under a retriever's energy blast. "We need more time." Through their bond, he felt Lyxa's mischievous response before she acted. She spun toward him, her movements fluid despite her pregnancy, and pulled him into a passionate kiss. The emotional surge from their connection rippled outward, shorting out 3 retrievers and causing the rebel Etheri's defensive abilities to spike dramatically. "Now that," Traxel laughed, his skin blazing with newfound joy as he disabled another retriever, "is what I call tactical thinking." The Council forces seemed confused by their opponent's emotional displays. The retrievers' programming couldn't account for the unpredictability of passion-enhanced combat. When 2 rebel Etheri started dancing between energy blasts, their shared exhilaration creating a protective field. The mechanical units actually hesitated. 60%, Aiden announced, returning fire while keeping one hand linked with Lyxa's. Their child's presence grew stronger, turning their bond into a beacon that strengthened every emotional connection in the battle. A massive retriever unit crashed through the station's wall, its red eyes focusing on Lyxa's pregnant form. Before it could act, Aiden stepped between them, his protective fury manifesting as a visible aura that made the machine's sensors overload. "That's my family you're threatening," he growled, feeling Lyxa's love and their child's approval surge through him. The energy of their combined emotions literally melted the retriever's chrome plating. 80%, Lyxa called out, her skin patterns creating dazzling displays as she coordinated the rebel Etheri's movements. "Just a little longer." The Council forces pressed harder, seeming to realize what the broadcast would mean. But their tactical precision was no match for the creative chaos of emotionally linked defenders. Rebel Etheri used their newly rediscovered feelings to improvise impossible maneuvers, while Aiden and Lyxa's bond turned them into a devastating fighting unit. "Look!" Traxel shouted as the broadcast reached 90%. "They're receiving it." Through the station's windows, they could see the Council ship's weapons powering down as the transmission reached their crews. The broadcast wasn't just data, it carried the emotional resonance of every bond in the room, amplified by their hybrid child's unique abilities. "They're feeling it," Lyxa whispered, her hand finding Aiden's as they watched the retrievers stop mid-attack. "Really feeling, maybe for the first time in generations." The final minutes of the broadcast transformed the battlefield. Council forces stood down as their Etheri operators experienced genuine emotion, many for the first time. The retrievers, receiving conflicting commands from newly emotional controllers, simply deactivated. As the transmission completed, a new signal came through the station's communications array. The Council's Supreme Administrator appeared on the main screen, his typically neutral expression replaced by visible wonder. What is the sensation?" he asked, his platinum skin showing emotional patterns for the first time in recorded history. "That's love, sir," Aiden replied, holding Lyxa close, as their child sent another wave of pure emotional energy through the connection. Real, unfiltered, illogical, beautiful love. The kind that starts when a mysterious alien asks to warm up in your tent and ends up changing the galaxy. The administrator's skin rippled with what could only be described as joy. Perhaps we have been wrong. All this time, we thought emotion made us vulnerable, when in fact, it makes us stronger, Lyxa finished, her amber eyes meeting Aiden's with unbridled affection, especially when we share it. 6 months after the battle at the research station, Aiden stood on the balcony of their new home in the Galactic Council's diplomatic quarter, admiring how the twin suns painted the crystalline spires in shades of golden rose. The view was breathtaking, but not nearly as captivating as the sight of Lyxa emerging from their quarters. Her pale green skin glowing with maternal patterns as she cradled their infant daughter. Avril, as they'd named her, had inherited her mother's luminescent skin and her father's warm brown eyes. Her hair shimmered between human brown and ethereal platinum, changing color with her emotions, which she broadcast with impressive strength for one so young. "Still admiring the sunrise?" Lyxa asked, moving to join him. Her leather diplomatic uniform, modified to her preferences, drew appreciative glances whenever she attended council sessions. "Or just avoiding the morning briefing?" Aiden pulled her close, careful not to disturb Avril. "Can I do both?" he murmured, nuzzling her neck in a way that made her skin ripple with pleasure patterns. Their bond had only grown stronger since the pregnancy, making every touch an adventure in shared sensation. "Tease," Lyxa accused playfully, but leaned into his embrace. "You know what your proximity does to my emotional control. The council members already have enough to gossip about without their chief interspecies relations advisor glowing like a supernova during meetings." And here I thought that was exactly why they appointed you." Aiden grinned, his fingers tracing the sensitive patterns on her exposed shoulder. "To show them that emotion and diplomacy aren't mutually exclusive." Avril burbled happily, sending waves of contentment through their family bond. Around them, several passing ethereal diplomats visibly brightened as they caught the edge of her emotional broadcast, their own skin patterns shifting in response. "She's getting stronger," Aiden observed proudly. "Yesterday, she made an entire room full of council guards break into spontaneous dance. Like father, like daughter." Lyxa laughed, remembering how their passionate connection had turned the tide in the battle for emotional freedom. "Speaking of which, the human delegation arrives today, ready to show them how much the galaxy has changed since you decided to share your tent with a mysterious alien." Aiden's response was to pull her into a kiss that sent cascades of color rippling across her skin. Avril giggled, adding her own joyful patterns to the display. "I think," he said when they finally parted, both slightly breathless, "that's exactly what I'll tell them. How one act of kindness on a rainy night led to the greatest revolution in galactic history, the return of love." Lyxa's amber eyes sparkled with mischief and devotion. "And to think you thought I just wanted to warm up." "Well," Aiden replied, his voice dropping to a whisper that made her skin flush with anticipation, "you did warm up, among other things." Their laughter, joined by Avril's happy burbles, echoed across the diplomatic quarter, a testament to the power of unexpected love and the night that changed everything.